What's the worst crime you ever committed before you turned 10? I was in the 4th grade. We were on a field trip to the Children's Museum. We were passing through the souvenir shop on our way back to the bus when something wonderful caught my eye. A shiny new figurine of a Triceratops. Being a dinosaur fanatic at the time, I was immediately smitten. Alas, though, we were not allowed to purchase anything from the shop. But, as luck would have it, a fight broke out near the front of the line, and with all the teachers distracted I saw an opportunity and I took it. Quick as lightning, I reached out and snatched up the beautiful dino and shoved it into my sweatshirt, with nobody the wiser. Thrilled and emboldened by my success, I figured that it was either go big or go home. I was already a criminal anyway, wasn't I? While the hapless teachers continued to prance frantically around the slap fight like a bunch of Sims near a house fire, I was busy shoving into my robber's bag 1 canister of silly putty, 2 Chinese finger traps, a pack of Willy Wonka nerds, a ton of those colored rocks mineral things that gift shops always seem to have. I never got caught. I ain't proud of it. But hey, I didn't choose the thug life. The thug life chose me. So one of you hooligans out there supports criminals enough to pay them. Ha, JK. Thanks for the gold. I stole a game of battleships from a daycare, ship by ship and then colored peg by peg. They just thought we kept losing the pieces because we were kids. I don't know what I expected to do with all the pieces because there was no way I could steal the boards without notice. Arson was playing with matches setting a newspaper on fire. It was pretty windy and the whole newspaper started blowing around. Grabbed a cardboard refrigerator box and stomped on the fire till I thought it was out. Well, the box caught fire. The wind picked up the embers and sent them up into a tree right behind my grade school. Tree went on fire and set the next one on fire. I ran, heard the fire engines and hid in my house for the rest of the weekend. That Monday I had to line up in the schoolyard. Stared at those 2 burnt out trees for almost 3 months before they cut them down. I was walking in the hall to the bathroom in 1st grade, and I thought I would save time by pulling my D out before I got to the bathroom, in front of a teacher and a cop lol. At the local aquarium, children under 5 were free. I was 6 but got in for free. I stole $500 and a chapstick from my dad's wallet and put it into my Darth Vader piggy bank, and he figured it out pretty quickly when he noticed the chapstick on the floor of my room. Upon looking in my piggy bank and finding the $5 100 bills, I told him it was from allowance when he never gave allowance. My best friend and I grabbed baseball bats and beat the it out of a random mailbox. Turns out it was the only black family in my neighborhood too. Grand theft cookie, withholding evidence, obstruction of family justice, was sentenced to 1 day solitary confinement. I stayed at a cinema and watched 3 movies before leaving. When I was about 7 or 8, I was in a department store with my mum. As kids do, I saw something I wanted, pointed it out to my mum and she agreed I could have it. My mum then proceeded to take a while to finish her shopping and I got sick of holding onto it, so I put it in my pocket, intending to take it back out at the checkout. I had completely forgotten it was there. I didn't realize until I got home that I essentially shoplifted. I had a breakdown, thinking I was going to get arrested. When I was about 6, my friend and I broke into my neighbor's house through an open window and stole his dog. I really wanted a dog and my parents wouldn't let me, so my friend and I were convinced we could steal my neighbor's dog and keep it a secret from my parents. We actually got the dog all the way back home and were discussing what to name him when my mom caught us. I'm still so ashamed by this. Edit. Can't believe this blew up so much. Of course my top comment ever is about committing multiple felonies at the age of 6. Hit a baseball at a car windshield and broke it. Usain bolted the duck out of the scene. But then my dad found out about it and made me fess up to the owner. The owner was a good sport and let me off the hook. My dad, however, made sure to pay him to cover the repair costs and took my allowance away for a while. There was this family that lived next to my grandparents, and they moved but I guess had a small car so they would leave bags outside of the house, pick some up and come back. Well, there was a black bag full of toys and I took it before they had a chance to come back for it. My sister once stole the collection plate from church as a toddler. Some would say she was too young to realize the implications of what she did, but her current gold digger attitude tends to make me disagree. Assault. Cut my younger half sister's hair while she was asleep. Also, my first memory is of her dad holding me down and shaving me bald as punishment for that. I used to steal marbles from school. I came home one day and bawled my eyes out in my room. Before asking my mom if thieves go to hell. Yeah. Unless they're really sorry for it. I wasn't sorry for it. I cried more. Edit. The karma I got on this post is more karma than I actually had. Also, that same year, kindergarten I think, I pissed in my desk and sink. I kiss boys. I was a sinner. Edit. My first gold. Can someone actually PM me what I'm supposed to do? It's so confusing, but I know it's a good and bless you guys. Destruction of federal property. There was a park near my house that had once been a Civil War fort. We found this really cool giant piece of quartz that we decided to dig up and bring home. Turns out it was grave marker for a mass grave of Union soldiers. Oops. I tried to kill my stepfather with a knife when he was sleeping cause he kept abusing me and my little brother. Unfortunately, he woke up and beat me and sent me to the ER. He was later thrown in prison when he threw my 3-year-old brother against the wall. My real mom, who lied to the cops about him, was also in jail. They are still together and started a whole new family. My friend wanted to see a nudie magazine. Being little kids, naturally he couldn't buy one over the counter anywhere. So he prodded and talked me into stealing a dirty magazine from the local used bookstore. I had no idea where they kept the dirty magazines. My friend said in the rear of the store. I went there and saw a magazine with a large-breasted but clothed woman pictured on the cover. I grabbed it, stuffed it under my shirt and brought it to my friend. My friend complained it was the wrong magazine. It wasn't a dirty magazine, just a regular one. He wanted me to go back in there and grab a Playboy. I refused to do it a second time. I shot my dad. To be fair, he shot me first. In hindsight, neither of us was mature enough to be left alone with pellet guns. Hit a kid with my sister's pogo stick. This was mid-80s, and he was the kid on the street who thought he could bully everyone, but then ran to his mum crying if anyone dared stand up to him. After a full day of visit, I finally snapped, went to our garage and got the pogo stick. Then I walked, with purpose, and a pogo stick over my shoulder, to his house, into the garden, and twatted him with it as hard as I could. He screamed and went down. While I calmly walked away and put the pogo stick away. I became a bit of a social pariah in the neighborhood after that, but that little it never bothered me again. My mother died in childbirth. I was the child. Full stop. When I was 7, my grandfather would take me to empty parking lots and teach me how to drive. When I was 9, he was in the hospital and was home for several weeks, and I would drive his car around town, running errands and picking up groceries for him. Did this for almost 3 weeks and never got caught. Not a crime, but I was in year 1 at school, and being littlets, we were messing around and making a lot of noise in the lunch hall. When we were told calm down by the teacher, we all accepted it. But there was always that one kid who said, yeah, you're not allowed to talk in here. For some reason that pissed us off more than anything, so I take it upon myself to stand up, walk past this guy, and then without thinking say to the teacher, name. Made fun of my skin dark as far as I knew it. I was one of 3 non-white in that school. He got suspended for 3 days. I was a little it. 5 years old. A man lived in the apartment across the hall from us, and he would always say hello and be super cool. Then one day I learned how to write my name, so I decided to scratch it into his car with a nail so everyone knew we were friends. When my mom found out I said it was some other kid with the same name, she didn't buy it. When I was a young lad, I accidentally made eye contact with a girl in town. I felt so guilty I almost turned myself in. We had a local chess tournament with UAQ 500, I think. Going to the winner, there was a break in the middle of the game, and little evil 8-year-old me, though it would be hilarious to remove a few of the pieces around. I stole a bunch of Pokemon cards and toys from a comic shop I used to frequent. My parents were going through money problems and fighting, so I thought if I acted out and got caught it could distract them. I got away with it and had a couple $100 and new stuff in my bedroom. Up until the age of 9 or so, every single time I would visit my best friend, I would pee on his front door. Edit. I always knew one day my feats and achievements would be recognized, and that day has finally come. Thank you very much for the gold, kind stranger. I'll piss on some stranger's door today in your honor. I stole baking soda and vinegar from the supermarket. I was a mad little scientist. Edit. My thievery has landed me my highest rated voice. Stole a book from a shop. I still don't know why I done it. I didn't even want the book. Opening mail that didn't belong to me, which is a federal crime. I used to take the letters addressed to the former owners of the house and pretend they were mine because it made me feel grown up to have mail to open. At 8 years old, my parents accused me of robbing the cookie jar. I plead not guilty, but the cookie crumbs in my room later served as damning evidence. My mom took me shopping to Burlington Coat Factory. Well, Mother's Day was rounding the corner and I saw this cool silver necklace and I thought that would be an awesome gift, but there were two problems. Firstly, young me had no money, and secondly, I couldn't ask my mother to buy it. It was her gift. So I took it, and while the cashier was distracted, I swiped it across the magnetic alarm deactivator, even though I probably didn't need to, and walked out with it in my pocket. Needless to say, my mom was not pleased. Lol. Edit. I was 8 or 9 at the time. Calling 911 when there was in fact no emergency. Grand theft golf cart. My neighbors had a golf cart and their rich daughter wouldn't let me drive it, so I took it and drove it into a pond. I stole a board game when I was 8. It was a risk I was willing to take. Around 8 years old, I was with my parents at the shops and I decided to try steal a packet of candy cigarettes. So I put them in my pocket. A kid roughly my age was right next to me and I smiled at him as if to be proud of what I just did. He then said, "Put those back." I was shocked because I thought I was being cool and decided to just put them back before he told on me. As I pulled them out of my pocket, my dad saw me and knew what I had just done. By the time we left, everyone in that shop knew my name and how many times I was getting the belt on my ass when we got home. I worked in a toy store while in high school. We always had little kids come in and steal stuff. If we caught them walking out of the store, our manager would take them to the back of the store and take their picture and put it up on our wall of kids that stole. We told them that from now on, if they ever came into our store, the employees would know that they were thieves. I think about that now and think, gosh, if that happened today, the toy store would probably be sued. Also, if someone found all those photos of little kids, what would they think? Called 911 on my parents because they weren't paying attention to me. Long story, but basically hid in a closet and peeped in on a groom and bride on their wedding night. Grand Theft Auto. In the 2nd grade, 2 of my friends and I decided that we didn't like homework. So we decided to talk to the president about it. Our plan was to meet at the airport the next morning to fly to Washington and chat with the president about the situation. While my mother was in the shower, I took her car keys and got into the car. It was a manual and I couldn't reach the pedals anyway. So a neighbor found me in the car slightly rolled down the road. One of my friends said he tried to bike to the airport but he got tired after a block and went home. The other said he forgot about the plan altogether. Once I stole a pair of red underwear from the department store. My mom wouldn't buy them for me. She said they were Satan's panties. I took Birdies, the McDonald's mascot, tail off once and just lost it almost immediately. Age 6. Lived in a new development of homes. A bunch of us got into a house that had just been completed through an open door. It didn't take long before vandalism started. Breaking mirrors, throwing rocks into walls, etc. The builder showed up and most of us ran. But I froze and got caught. Had to go to juvenile court for it and got probation. The only good thing to come from it was my dad later telling me that he was never more simultaneously ashamed and proud of me at the same time. He was disgusted by what I did, but he was amazed that I never gave up the name of a single friend. I said I didn't know any of them, and he respected that. When I was 2, I shoplifted a small pumpkin from Menards. To this day I choose to shop at Home Depot instead out of fear of them finding out of my heinous actions. Went through a stage of stealing loads of stuff from people at school, such as pencil cases, those awesome bendy rulers, and just loads of things like that. I still feel bad about it now, and it's been 7 years. Although in my defense, the girl I stole the whole pencil case from had bullied me for several years. Actually found out from my mum yesterday that she stole the exact same things when she was my age, so maybe it's just a weird klepto stage that some kids go through. Not me. A friend of mine from high school. He revealed to me one day that he attributed one event from his childhood that forever changed the course of his life for the worse. He was in school with his friends and they were standing at the top of a stairwell. They were all playing with matches and he ended up lighting one and throwing it down the stairs. Well, that match landed on a girl's head and her hair caught on fire. She wasn't badly hurt, but apparently there was a Michael Jackson-ish hairspray effect, and a lot of her hair went up in flames. He was expelled from the school district and sent to a school for problem children. He wasn't an animal, but he was thrown in with the worst kids in town. There was no focus on learning, and pretty soon, school was not school any longer. When I knew him, he was in the technical stream in high school focusing on automotive. He simply said that every day since that day had been a struggle, and he realized that the life he would have had was no longer possible. As a grown adult now, I have a hard time thinking about how down a kid could be, that he thinks it is all over from 10 years old on. A buddy and I were at the local mall and had just finished watching a movie at the mall's second floor AMC movie theater. One way to exit was through a fairly industrial back hallway, a hallway that happened to have a large fire hose wrapped up and an enticing large water valve. We thought it would be fun to open the valve and see what happened. Well, water came gushing out of the fire hose. Like water from a fire hose. We got scared and ran off. Without turning off the water, we ran out of the mall and to the bike racks to get out of the area. However, before a minute went by, mall fire alarms were tripping and we were too curious to leave. Before too long, a number of fire trucks pulled up. Nervous, but watching this unfold, we saw the firemen open some bottom floor doors, and basically Niagara Falls was gushing from the doorway. It was all quite exciting. A man came over at one point and asked us if we knew what happened. And to this day I think he was a plainclothes cop by the way he was trying to get information from us. I don't know the extent of the water damage, but we never confessed and never got caught. There's a chocolate place near where I live that has tons and tons of bulk candy chocolate. I used to stuff my pockets and not tell my mom. I shoplifted a choker that said Aquarius on it. I'm a Gemini. I burned down 3 trees in the side of a building when I was 8. I had found matches in the staircase leading down from my apartment and I was lighting the pine straw on fire with my friend Daniel. We had gotten down to the last match and we decided to let this one go for a little longer. The other ones we had stomped out after a few seconds. Anyway, you know how fire works, and soon it was out of control. I remember I ran home and told my mom right away what I had done. But I did lie to the police. He walked me over to his car and threatened to take me to jail before I confessed. This led to me requiring a parent to be with me, and eventually my parents were evicted because they refused to pay for the damages. My little brother stole a lobster. I took a 45-minute shower in California. I accidentally pooped in the bathtub right before we were going to see The Lion King. I picked up as much as I could with soggy toilet paper and flushed it, but the rest I had to finger down the drain. I got away with it at the time, but it ruined seeing Lion King in theaters. I had to come clean a week or so later and admit what had happened. I just liked the bubbles coming out from my farts. I didn't know I'd have a fecal murder scene on my hands. I was exactly 10, but I still feel as though this fits the thread. For context, at the start of the 5th grade, I was ducking depressed. My family had just moved states and I was thousands of miles away from all the friends I'd known all my life. I was also desperate for attention. My teacher had a class blog where she'd give us bell ringers to start the day. You know what I did? I ducking made a terroristic threat. I anonymously wrote, not verbatim but this is the gist, I'm coming to school with a gun tomorrow. You'll all be sorry. This was right after the Sandy Hook shootings. So understandably everyone was ducking terrified. The police were called and I started crying and turned myself in. The aftermath was scary as duck. I don't know much about the legalities because I've never brought it up much to my parents, but I know a lawyer was hired. I spoke to him, and I almost went to state juvenile court before the whole case was dropped. Probably because it was ridiculous. The only good thing that came out of all this was that I got the therapy that I needed, but man, that it was stressful on a 10-year-old and probably even more stressful on my parents. TLDR. 5th grade me threatened to shoot up the school. I used to steal zebra gum packets. I'd always freak out, but yay, I just needed them. All of them. I snuck a seashell onto an airport. A seashell with sharp edges. Needless to say, I'm on the FBI's most wanted list. Stopped and possibly derailed a freight train by putting stones in the rails. It all started with coins. Edit. Whole story was, me and my friend started pressing coins on a railroad track. A couple weeks later we got bored and ran out of ideas. So we grabbed rocks and lined them up. After a couple trains running over them with huge noises, one suddenly stopped right before the piled up stones. We ran like hell and saw several police cars turning up in the distance. Managed to outmaneuver them and got back home. Never to do this again. Bank fraud. One stole a check from my mother. Wrote $2,000 on it from some random guy I've never met. Paid to some random guy I've never met. Biked to a nearby bank and deposited the check. I should mention the bank account was shared with my mother. The $2,000 check didn't work because it wasn't deposited to the right account. I took another check for $3,000 this time and tried again. This time to the account of I Eat It for Afternoons. It worked, but it wasn't long before my mum realized that she was missing a couple $1,000s and proceeded to angrily destroy my newfound richness bliss. Sigh. Ignorance of youth. Theft and vandalism. My sister and I stole spray paint from the store. We would sneak out at 2 AM during the summer and spray up an already spray painted bridge and rock in our neighborhood. Did I mention we lived in a subdivision with good schools and basically no crime? No one ever found out it was us. One day someone was moving into a house across the street. They had a big white moving truck there overnight. Of course, my sister and I thought it looked like a lovely canvas. We wrote "go away" and drew some crude stuff on the sides. The next morning we were sleeping in. I guess our dad had seen our handiwork across the street and peeked in on us. We had spray paint on our fingers. He bought white paint and helped the neighbors cover up our artwork on the rental truck. We were grounded for a long time. When I was a kid I made a CDR copy of a CD1 checked out from the local library. The pirate guilt was overwhelming. Terrified I'd be caught through some Big Brother space technology, I ran to the woods, a house away from my own, and threw it like a young Steve Rogers. So add littering to the list.